So I really think it does play a factor with what you have in your tank as well. If you have a bunch of fish and a bunch of coral, they may be fine when your water's heavily oxygenated, but when your power goes out, I mean, you have to act quickly in certain situations.
What's up, Reef Fanatics? Welcome to another Coral Reef Talk podcast. My name is Joey Jones, and I'm joined by Levi Peterson.
What's up, guys? How's it going?
How's it going, Levi? What have you been up to? How you been?
Everything's been going really good. I've been staying busy at work, which is always good. It means the hobby's still flourishing, so that's a good sign.
And how are your tanks doing?
Tanks are doing good. I did a few things to the 75 gallon. I ended up removing some of the fish that I had in there, like the blue head wrasse and the yellow head wrasse and my rock beauty angelfish, because they were really aggressive. And I mean, I love those fish because they're gorgeous, but they were just super aggressive, and I couldn't really add many more fish to the tank or even certain corals with the rock beauty. So I decided to remove those fish and kind of work on some new fish, get some smaller reef fish in there, like some gobies and chromas that I couldn't have in there before with the other fish. So making some changes. So
I saw you posted something about you added a sponge or something, or you got another sponge?
Yeah, so I added a couple sponges and then Christmas tree worm rock.
Yes,
really nice.
That thing looks awesome. There's a lot of them in there.
Yeah, gorgeous.
Yes. Well, today we're going to be talking about being prepared with your reef tank or your aquarium. What do you do when bad weather strikes? I know for us in Florida, hurricanes, but weather in general, or is that like you could lose power? So what do you do when you lose power? What kind of things do you need to have to be prepared? What comes to your mind? What's like one of the first things that you're thinking about, like for power outages?
So as soon as the power goes out, I'm instantly thinking that I need to get oxygen in the tank. Oxygen is one of the most important things to have in a reef tank, especially when the power's out, because all your fish and bacteria and all that sort of stuff will start consuming the oxygen. And if you're not having any aeration with the water or any like plants or per se or anything creating oxygen in the tank, then you're going to deplete the oxygen rather quickly. So definitely
That's absolutely the first thing that goes to my mind is like I need some water movement in the tank.
Yep.
I need something to move it around. And like whenever the power goes out, if you're not on like a backup battery for your tank or like a generator or something, then you do kind of only have a limited amount of time depending on how big your tank is before really bad things start happening. So like I've kind of been in the situation before where I'm just like manually doing it, like I have something in the water, just moving the water around. Like, I mean, that's probably not the ideal scenario, but when you don't have much, like just to get that oxygen going and the water moving absolutely helps. When it comes to equipment, there's many different ways that you can handle that. Backup battery is one. Is there, what's your like go-to thing? Like, do you have air bubblers set up? Like,
So yes, for every single one of my tanks, I at least have one of the, I think they call them mini bubbles or something. You can get them at like Walmart or many other stores. They're used for like keeping fish alive in like a bait bucket or something if you're fishing. But they're very convenient and they're kind of small, so you can store them rather easily. And I just pull them out when the power goes out, throw one in each tank. They do require batteries, obviously, so I try to keep a decent amount of those batteries in stock that they take. But yeah, that's the first thing I just do right away. I pull them all out, get the oxygen rolling in the tanks. I personally don't have a generator right now. So last year when Hurricane Ian came through and we were out of power for I think about a week, I was able to borrow a generator from work, which was nice because we didn't lose power at work. So that kind of saved me there, but definitely was scary because I mean, I think for the first couple days I was cycling through batteries once a day pretty much, and I'm like, man, I'm kind of getting low. And all the stores are pretty much wiped out of most everything, and some of them weren't even open, so I'm trying to be a little more prepared this time. So I have a lot of extra batteries just in case the shop goes out at work, but I'm trying to figure out a way to get a generator here soon too, so generator right now. So
I need to help you get one, man. Yeah, so like those definitely help. But this is what you were kind of talking about. Grab one of these. Especially if you have a smaller tank, these will work really well because they have the lithium ion battery inside. So like right now, I should be able to turn it on and it it's working right now. So these can last, probably could last up to 24 hours. It depends. So they'll last a while without charging it. But yeah, so air bubbler, get oxygen in the water, get the water moving. If you have a generator, plug in like maybe a circulation pump, maybe your return pump.
Yep.
If you're without light for a few days, I mean, your corals are going to be fine. If you're tackling like green hair algae or something, you do like a blackout for 3 days anyway to kind of help tackle that as one of the ways. So your coral will be fine without the light. Fish really don't care too much about the light. So yeah, it's all about that water movement, and generators a big way to help. Air bubblers. What's something else? What's another hurricane or weather preparedness item or something you could do?
You mentioned generators for sure. Battery backups for certain things are always nice. I know EcoTech has battery backup, and I believe I can't think of the brand right now. Ice Cap, they have a battery backup. There's plenty of other battery backups out there, and I've even seen people use this mechanism where they use like a marine boat motor, or not motor, battery, and they connect and finagle a few wires, and they run some stuff off their batteries from their cars or their boats or whatever. Seen people do that. So I mean, there's quite a few ways to kind of make sure your tank has oxygen and such.
Yeah,
There's cheaper ways to do it, and there's more expensive ways to go about it too. Because I know the battery backups they're definitely up there, but they're always convenient to have. So
yeah, for sure. And like back even before I had a generator, I had like one of those AC adapter things that would plug right into the car. And then you could plug a couple things through that and just run your car. Um, but yeah, I was talking about earlier, like manually doing it, like getting a spatula or something, moving the water around.
yeah, just stirring
Um,
it up and hmm
yeah, stirring up the water. I mean, you could do that for like a few minutes or something, and then stop, and then take a little break, and then come back and do it again until you get that generator up or battery backup going, or just do that temporarily to keep things going.
yeah, and I mean, like a lot of people that I know, I've heard of people like freak out like as soon as the power goes out. Just because the power goes out for even like I want to say I'd probably start getting concerned like maybe 10 to 15 hours into like a power outage because that's like as your stuff settles over time, it's definitely going to start racking up some ammonia and such. So you definitely want to start getting that oxygen in there within the first, I would say, few hours. But I don't really freak out when I lose power, especially if it's just a small storm rolling through. I obviously get the bubblers in the tanks and just kind of see what happens. Usually they're pretty quick about getting the power on, but if you have like a hurricane or something, then you're going to have a whole different scenario where you could be out of power for a whole week like I was. So you just want to always try to be prepared ahead of time. Obviously, I still need to get a generator, so I've kind of been a little lax on that, and I shouldn't have been. So now I'm in a situation where I probably need to find one here soon.
Yeah,
And we're
yeah,
only a day out from one possible.
yeah. So at the
Yeah.
time of recording this, the hurricane that's approaching Florida right now is upon us. Yes, a day
Yes.
out, like you said. So tomorrow, you got to find a generator.
I need to.
As soon
Yeah.
as the
I've like been on my way to work and like just got to work and I've got a notification that my power went out. I'm like, oh great, I just got to work. It's not like I can just turn back around and head home.
right,
And
yeah,
obviously my wife works too, and I've had it been like out the whole entire day, and I get home and there's no issues whatsoever in any of my tanks, and then I obviously get the oxygen going, and I just try to look at it from a stress-free angle. But
yeah,
always
absolutely.
stressful.
And like, especially like if you're new to the hobby and stuff, like things can happen. I mean, things happen slow and steady. Of course, they say bad things happen quickly, and that
Mhm.
can be true. Just talking about power outages, if you live in a place that your power kind of goes off more than normal, even with no storms or like a light storm, then probably a battery backup would be a good option to get. And I haven't read up on them in a while, but I think do they last multiple days, the battery backups? I think they're a few hours.
Yeah, extremely long. I want to say like you just said a few hours. I could be
Yeah,
wrong on that.
let me see if I can type that in. Battery backup. We'll look at some of the specs on this here, see what we can find. Because if I remember correctly, back when I was looking for battery backups, they don't last too long. Well, it depends on what you have plugged into it, I'm sure. Product features 30 or more hours of Vortec pump backup power. So
Not at
that's
all.
yeah, that's not bad. That's rated, of course, for for the Vortex pumps for like the MP10, MP40, MP60s. But yeah, so 30 hours. So yeah, pretty good.
That's not bad.
So
I
that'll
mean,
definitely get you through.
I will say though, I didn't really think of this until just now. It just popped in my head. But I think it also depends on what you have in your tank. I mean,
Yes.
if you have a big bio load, I think that definitely plays a factor. And then recently, probably about a month ago, we lost power. A small storm came through, and I had just recently added some fresh sponges to a tank. And I think with the stagnancy of the water, the sponges kind of just
Started
because I got
disappearing.
home
Yeah.
and that tank specifically was just cloudy and the sponges looked a little off. And I'm like, okay, sponges definitely didn't like sitting in still water for that long. So I really think it does play a factor with what you have in your tank as well. If you have a bunch of fish and a bunch of coral, they may be fine when your water's heavily oxygenated, but when your power goes out, I mean, you have to act quickly in certain situations.
Yeah. Now, I will say that if you're like, we've talked a lot about battery backups and generators and keeping the water moving. But one thing about being prepared is you should probably have some water on hand too. So,
Yes, yeah.
so definitely have some salt water mixed up. Like if you don't make it yourself and you buy it from your local fish store, definitely get 5, 10 gallons, depending on your tank size. Get some salt water, get some fresh RODI water mixed up.
Yeah.
So that way, if you do see some cloudiness or you do see things starting to go south, you can do water changes, and that will help bring things back into balance.
Yeah. I mean, also, if you're out of power for a few days or so, I mean, you're definitely going to have some evaporation too. So you're definitely going to,
Yes.
like, once your pump kicks back on or whatever, if you regain power, you're probably going to be low on water, even though you might not think of it that way. But there's still going to be evaporation and such. So you just got to kind of keep that in mind too. You want to have some water on hand for when your power does get back on because you will probably have to top off.
Absolutely. And then, of course, tank temperature too.
Yep.
Your tank's going to heat up even more, depending on where you live at too. But yeah, so with your tank temperature rising, some techniques that have been shared throughout the years is, of course, freeze some bottles of water.
Yep.
Uh,
That's exactly what I do.
okay, you do that, sweet.
Yep.
Nice. And now, do you use RODI water in the bottles? So that way, if
Yeah,
anything,
I do just in case, like, there's a little bit of, like, leakage. I mean, I'm not too worried about that because, I mean, it's a small amount of water, but just say why not? Just
yeah, just to
be
be on the
safe,
safe side. Yeah, some RODI water and some water bottles, freeze them up so that way you can float them in the tank, and kind of balance that temperature. So temperature, one thing to check. Keep an eye on the salinity, of course, with the evaporation. Of course, power, get a circulation pump going, air bubbler or something. Let's see, what else can you think of for being prepared? Even steps leading up to it. So we got get some water, have some water on hand.
I mean, personally, just to be safe, I'd always, like, especially if you're out of power for more than a day or so, I definitely have, like, some kind of test kit for, like, ammonia or something. If you start to see an extreme spike, even if you're aerating the water, you're going to end up having to do a water change, or you could still potentially lose a bunch of stuff. Because, I mean, even if you're oxygenating the water, you still don't have the circulation and the that you would normally have when your power's on, obviously. So, I mean, even if you are aerating your tank relatively well, you still may see an increase in ammonia and nutrient levels just simply because your water's not flowing and you're not getting the filtration that you would normally have. So I definitely keep a test kit on hand just to kind of monitor the levels as the days go on or so, just to kind of keep an eye on things to be extra safe. I mean, the hobby's expensive. It's not a cheap hobby, and the last thing you want to do is lose $100 fish or stuff's just expensive. So I mean, just be on the safe side. You want to stay on top of things and pay attention to things because a lot of people have a lot of money invested into these systems. So definitely don't want to lose anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to definitely invest in being prepared in some way. So like if or maybe you're at a point where you're happy with everything in your tank and maybe your tank is smaller so you're not really investing too much money into the hobby because it does kind of depend a little bit on many variables on how expensive the hobby is. And
Mm-hmm.
to your point, yes, the hobby is absolutely expensive, but also with the size of your aquarium too. So you may want to look
Yeah.
into a battery backup or a nice air pump or something to keep that going.
So when Hurricane Ian came through, I want to say it was just about a week,
Week.
so 5.5 to 6 days. So, I mean, we were just sitting outside because, I mean, after the hurricane went through, it was rather cool. So we were kind of enjoying outside because we had nothing better to do. And all of a sudden the pump kicked back on, and I was inside topping off all the tanks, making sure everything was good.
Yeah. Okay. So ours was out during that hurricane 3.5 days, I believe it was, almost 4 days. So yeah, we got everything on the generator, got the pumps going, and yeah, I mean, without the lights, it was fine. I kind of like, if you're going 3 or 4 days, everything most of the time work out.
I mean, you get monsoons and that sort of stuff over in the Indo-Pacific too. And I mean, if a storm sits over a certain area for a certain amount of days, I mean, those corals aren't getting the light that they normally would. And I mean, you're still getting some sort of light through like daylight through your windows. Obviously, not if you have it in like a basement or something. I mean, just a little bit of light even helps. But a lot of these corals have been through a lot of storms and such where they're not getting hardly any light. So I mean, it's really not that huge of a deal. But
Yeah, for sure. And so probably the main or top three things as far as being prepared for power outages would be water circulation, having water prepared, RODI water, and some salt water.
You mentioned oxygen.
Moving the water temperature and then having extra water on hand would probably be top three. Or
Yeah, I would say that's definitely top three.
yeah, so today we just wanted to talk about that because we are in that hurricane season, at least down here in Florida. There are probably more specific and more technical specs and stuff we could get into with battery backups and generators and stuff like that, but we kind of just wanted to share those things. And we're kind of going to toss it back to you guys. Let us know in the comments below, what do you guys do to be prepared? I'm sure there's probably a lot more things that we missed. Of course, there's a lot more steps that you can take beforehand to get prepared. But as far as keeping your tank going during the power outage, definitely keep that water circulated and just be prepared if anything goes south, that you can do those water changes and yeah, monitor the temperature, salinity, things like that. So this part of the podcast, I wanted to throw out a question to you, Levi. What's your favorite fish? Do you have one favorite fish, or do you have a favorite group of fish?
So I'd say I kind of have a group personally. I like the basslets, like royal grandmas, chalk bass, keeling basslets, and there's like, believe it or not, and especially just recently, so I work with one of our divers at the shop that collects some more deep water stuff. He gets into some weird basslets locally here on the East Coast, so it's always cool to like see bringing in basses and stuff that I've never seen before.
Yeah,
there's like hundreds of different species of basses. It's kind of crazy. I had never really known or expected that. So I mean, it's always cool to find new things. I mean, I just think that specific family and with the basslets, there's just so much variety in color. Royal grandmas are gorgeous. The Q and basslets are gorgeous. I mean, they're expensive, but they're worth it for the color. Like, they're amazing. And I mean, there's just so many different colors in that same family that it blows me away. So
yeah, like the two-tone nature of the Royal Grandma, the purple and yellow, like, and it's a pretty good beginner fish too. So if you want to get started with an awesome colored fish, that's one way to jump right into it for sure. Me personally, I fell in love with the powder blue tang. I mean, like the mask on his face and everything, that blue color. Blue is my favorite color. So just how awesome the powder blue tang looks in your tank, how it swims around and everything. It's absolutely my favorite fish. Hopefully we'll get one soon for the 125, because I think my yellow tang's a little bit lonely right now. We need another tang. That would be pretty cool. So that's my absolute favorite fish. My wife loves the Royal Grandma as well. So let us know in the comments below what you guys do for staying prepared during weather or just power outages. And thank you so much for checking out this episode of the Coral Reef Talk podcast. I'm Joey from the Coral Reef Talk.
Levi from Oddball Reefer. Thanks for watching, guys.
Yep, we'll see you in the next one.
See you guys.